Okay, I just want to spend a few minutes here sharing my current OBS setup. And this is in conjunction with a course that I'm currently taking. And wanted to talk about a few things that we spoke about in class today, in fact. And wanted to share again my OBS setup with my colleagues. Always interested in knowing how others are using OBS and how they're setting up their OBS based on their own use case. But I just wanted to spend a few minutes here today sharing my use case and talk about a couple of things here relevant to today's live session in Microsoft Teams. So, as you can see here, one of the things we talked about today was how to broadcast or bring in kind of a screen capture of a cell phone. In my case, I'm using Android and using an app to bring that into OBS. And that was something new to me today, something very useful, something that, in fact, I will be using quite a bit this semester. So this is a nice way to bring in this. It's a good way to bring in information here from a cell phone into OBS. I'm going to go ahead and hide this for now. And something else I wanted to do, and I'm going to bring in OBS. This is going to get kind of ugly here. But the rest of what I want to share with you today is bringing in Microsoft Teams chat. Sorry, one other thing too I wanted to discuss is how to bring in a circle here. I think I posted in Microsoft Teams how to do that. There's a lot of information online in YouTube how to go about bringing or adding this circle around a video, and this was something else I wanted to try to do today. But if you're looking here at my screen at the right-hand side, I brought in the chat. This was something we talked about, and something for me very useful. In my own case, students that I have face-to-face, this probably won't be that relevant for them, but a lot of what I do, I share publicly with through my YouTube channel. So if anyone were to view a live video recording, if they contribute to the chat, for me, it would be very useful to bring in outside conversations or that back channel into OBS. So that would allow me not to have to go back and forth or toggle back and forth between the YouTube broadcast page and OBS. So let me double check here in the YouTube studio. I just want to see the broadcast, see how, make sure that everything is up and running. And one thing I tested, I'll test it again here. The chat in YouTube, what I want to be able to do is to post messages to YouTube chat within OBS like I've done here. And then I want to test this to see if in fact that same message is being brought into or is being posted to the YouTube channel, and it is, and vice versa. If I type in a message within the YouTube public page, if that's brought in to OBS, and in fact it is. So this is exactly what I wanted to be able to do, have this feature in YouTube. And to do that, it's very simple. Go into Docs and select this option, Chat, at the very bottom. By default, it's not selected, and basically just select that, and it should appear here at the right. Now, if it doesn't appear, or if it does appear, sometimes you'll have to click and drag and bring it over to the right-hand column. In fact, if that's where you would like it, this for me is where I would like to have it, so I can see the broadcast page and I can see the chat off to the right. So that's basically it. Now, the last thing I want to share is the audio setup or the audio filters that I'm currently using, really to get the most out of the audio sound in OBS. And this is going to depend on a lot on the equipment that you're using. It's going to include, or it's going to depend a lot on the space, the recording space where you're recording. And I'm not an audio engineer, but I think it's worth mentioning how I've set it up for you to kind of use this as a baseline to get an idea about what you or how you would like to set it up. So if you select your audio device, this is my microphone. and I select filters. I'm currently using a noise gate, noise suppression, compressor, 3-band equalizer, and limiter. So the noise gate, I basically leave it by default. I may change the attack time and hold time as it appears here. But this is something you'll want to experiment. This is going to depend on a lot. It's going to depend on how much background noise you have and whether or not you need to raise or lower this gate. But if your voice is getting cut off at any point, then you're going to want to experiment with this threshold so that you avoid getting cut off. The noise suppression I leave by default. The compressor I set at 4. Leave everything else. I may lower the attack and release time as it appears here. I do increase the output gain anywhere from 4 to 7 dBs. Again, this is going to depend on your equipment. If you're using an audio interface, or if you're it's going to depend on the settings in your operating system. If you go into Windows, for example, and you'll need to see what volume you have set your microphone. I typically increase it to 100% and then tweak it as I need to, or change it or modify it as I need to. But for me personally, anywhere from 4 to 7 dBs, this is where I usually like to leave it. If I set this at 0, that is, if I don't change anything in the gain, just to experiment here, you'll notice that the audio is right in the middle of the yellow, and some would argue that, in fact, is the best place for it to be, but this is just a personal preference. I like to bring it up just a little bit, especially when I'm streaming, to get the most. I like to add just a little bit of the low end. To the audio, so I'll increase this anywhere from 2 to 4 dBs. But again, this is going to be up to you, whether or not you want to bring in extra sound using a 3-band equalizer. Now the limiter, as I mentioned earlier, I'll leave this by default. If you'll notice here, this red dot, the sound is not going to take it. It's not going to go past that sound, right? So it won't clip. Now you'll notice here that if I were to back up, if I speak away from my microphone, you'll notice that there's not a lot of difference, a little bit, but there's not a lot of difference in the volume. This goes back to the compressor. But also, if I were to speak very loudly, you'll notice that the limiter kicks in and it doesn't clip. And so it's always good to use some kind of limiter, especially if you're compressing the sound and you're bringing that sound up a little bit higher than, let's say, maybe that others would recommend. The limiter is going to be important. If you run your sound a little bit lower, and you're just careful with your mic placement and your mic technique, then the limiter becomes less of an issue, or it's not really as important to use. But this is how I set it up. And again, a lot of it's going to be just personal choice and how you want your sound to be. But this is my current setup. So that's it. I just wanted to share my current OBS setup. Again, if you have any suggestions, or you're setting it up completely different, I'm always interested in how others are setting it up, especially depending on your own context or your use case. So we'll stop there, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions, or if you have any doubts related to what I'm sharing with you here today.